The diplomatic vessel Harmonious Unity drifted through the darkness of space with the grace of a dancer. Its hull reflected the distant stars like polished silver, every curve designed for maximum efficiency and beauty. Inside the observation deck, Ambassador Thelenkor stood with his 6 fellow delegates, each representing different species from across the Galactic Council. They had traveled for 3 standard cycles to reach this remote sector of space, all to witness something that should have been routine. Thelenkor adjusted his ceremonial robes and reviewed the data pad in his primary hand. His secondary hands remained clasped behind his back in the traditional Vrexian posture of diplomatic patience. The information on the screen showed the basic specifications of the human warship they were about to inspect. Mass power output, crew complement, weapon systems, everything appeared adequate. Nothing remarkable, nothing concerning. "Ambassador, we are approaching the rendezvous coordinates," announced the ship's captain through the communication system. Her voice carried the melodic quality typical of her species, calm and professional. Thelenkor nodded, though the captain could not see him. "Proceed as planned. Inform our hosts that we have arrived." Around him, the other delegates murmured among themselves. To his left stood Commander Vril of the Kessian Defense Fleet, his crystalline form refracting the soft blue lighting of the observation deck. The Kessians had held military superiority in the outer sectors for nearly 1,000 years. Their ships were marvels of energy efficiency, capable of sustaining long campaigns with minimal resource expenditure. "I have reviewed the human specifications 3 times, Vril said, his voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Their vessel massing at 2 million metric tons seems excessive for a ship of its class. Most curious." Dr. Yenna, the Peltharian scientist in their group, clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. Perhaps they have not yet mastered the art of compression technology. Young species often build larger before they learn to build smarter. Thelenkor had heard such assessments before. Every new species that joined the Galactic Council went through the same evaluation process. They would present their military capabilities, the Council would assess potential threats, and inevitably, the newcomers would fall within expected parameters. The galaxy had been at peace for 3,000 years because warfare had become mathematically unprofitable. Resources required to wage war exceeded any potential gains. Every species eventually learned this lesson. Humanity had been part of the galactic community for 5 standard cycles now. They had been cordial, professional, and remarkably quiet. They established trade relationships, shared scientific data, and participated in cultural exchanges. They followed all protocols. They seemed eager to learn. Most importantly, they had not caused any problems. This military review was simply a formality, requested by the Council to complete humanity's full integration process. Every member species underwent the same inspection. It was not about distrust, it was about understanding. The galaxy worked because everyone knew where everyone else stood. "Sensors are detecting an anomaly," the captain announced, her melodic voice carrying a note of confusion. "Long-range scans show something approaching, but the readings are inconsistent." Thelenkor moved closer to the large viewport that dominated the observation deck. The other delegates joined him, forming a line of various shapes and sizes, all united in curiosity. "What kind of inconsistency?" Vril asked, his crystalline form shifting colors slightly as it always did when he became interested in tactical matters. "The mass readings keep fluctuating. Our computers are having difficulty establishing a solid lock. It is almost as if the object is larger than our sensors are calibrated to measure accurately." A ripple of amusement passed through the delegates. Dr. Yenna's mandibles clacked in what her species considered laughter. "Perhaps the humans are testing our sensor equipment. A clever way to begin a military demonstration." But Thelenkor did not laugh. Something in the captain's voice had changed. The confusion was real, not theatrical. He had known this captain for many years. "She did not make mistakes. All delegates, please secure yourselves," the captain said. "The human vessel is dropping out of faster-than-light travel." The viewport's protective filters automatically engaged, darkening slightly to protect their various optical organs from the bright flash that always accompanied FTL transitions. Space itself seemed to ripple and tear as reality bent around the emerging vessel. Then they saw it. Thelenkor's 3 hearts stopped beating for a full second. His mind could not immediately process what his eyes were reporting. Around him he heard gasps, clicks, whistles, and sounds of shock from every species present. Commander Vrill's crystalline body went completely clear, a stress response Thelenkor had never witnessed before. The human warship hung in space before them like a mountain that had decided to fly. It was not a ship. It was a fortress, a monument to some terrible purpose that the galaxy had forgotten millennia ago. The Harmonious Unity was considered a large vessel by diplomatic standards, measuring nearly 300 meters from bow to stern. This human ship dwarfed it, not by twice its size or even 10 times. The human warship was 50 times larger than their diplomatic vessel. It stretched across space like a city, its hull bristling with structures that could only be weapons arrays, sensor towers, and armor plating so thick it looked like the walls of a fortress. "By the ancient stars," someone whispered behind Thelenkor. He could not tell who had spoken. Perhaps it had been him. The ship was not elegant. It had none of the smooth curves and artistic lines that characterized modern military vessels. It was all brutal angles, flat surfaces, and geometric efficiency. It looked like someone had taken the concept of a warship and stripped away everything that was not essential to its singular purpose: combat. The hull was dark gray, almost black in places, with sections that appeared to be layered armor plating. Raised structures ran along its length like the spine of some ancient predator. Massive cylindrical objects protruded from multiple points, each one larger than the Harmonious Unity's main engine assembly. Weapons, Thelenkor realized with growing horror. Those were weapons. "Sensors have achieved full lock," the captain reported, her voice now stripped of its musical quality, replaced by something flat and shocked. "Confirmed mass 2.3 million metric tons. Length 4,200 meters. Width 800 meters. Height 600 meters. Power output readings are... I must recheck these numbers. They cannot be correct." Dr. Yenna had moved to her portable analysis station and was frantically entering commands. The specifications they submitted were accurate. "This vessel matches their declared parameters. We simply did not understand what those parameters meant in practical terms." Thelenkor forced his breathing to steady. He had been a diplomat for 40 years. He had negotiated treaties, resolved conflicts, and maintained peace across dozens of star systems. He would not panic now. He would not show fear, but his hands trembled slightly as he gripped the railing in front of the viewport. "They are hailing us," the captain announced. "Open the channel," Thelenkor said. His voice sounded steady. "Good." A human face appeared on the communication screen. Female with dark skin and darker eyes. She wore a uniform of deep blue with various insignia that meant nothing to Thelenkor. Her expression was pleasant, almost friendly. She smiled, showing her teeth in what humans considered a gesture of welcome, though many species found it unsettling. "Harmonious Unity. This is Captain Elena Rodriguez of the United Earth spaceship Indomitable. Welcome. We are pleased to host your inspection tour as requested by the Galactic Council. Permission to dock is granted. Please transmit your shuttle's approach vector at your convenience." The captain spoke calmly, professionally, as if her ship were not a titan of war that had just redefined everything the galaxy thought it knew about military power. Thelenkor realized he had stopped moving. They all had. Every delegate stood frozen, staring at the ship that should not exist. The galaxy had been peaceful for 3,000 years. Thelenkor suddenly wondered if that peace had been built on assumptions that were about to shatter. The shuttle bay of the Indomitable was larger than the main cargo hold of most military vessels Thelenkor had ever visited. The small diplomatic shuttle from the Harmonious Unity looked like a child's toy as it settled onto the landing pad, dwarfed by the massive space around it. The bay could easily accommodate 50 vessels of their size, perhaps more. As the shuttle's doors opened and the delegation descended the ramp, Thelenkor noticed the gravity immediately. It was stronger than standard galactic specifications, not uncomfortably so, but enough to be noticeable. His robes felt heavier. His steps required slightly more effort. The humans had not adjusted their artificial gravity to accommodate visitors. They expected visitors to adjust to them. Captain Rodriguez waited at the base of their ramp, flanked by 2 officers in similar uniforms. She was tall for her species, though Thelenkor had learned that humans varied considerably in height. What struck him was not her size but her bearing. She stood with the relaxed confidence of someone completely at ease in her environment, like a predator in its own territory. "Ambassador Thelenkor," she said. extending her hand in the human gesture of greeting. "Welcome aboard the Indomitable. I hope your journey was comfortable." Thelenkor performed the hand-grasping ritual he had practiced. The captain's grip was firm, much firmer than he had expected. Her hand felt strong, the bones solid beneath surprisingly tough skin. "Thank you, Captain Rodriguez. Your vessel is quite impressive." "She's a beast," Rodriguez said with a slight smile. "But she's our beast. Let me introduce my executive officer, Commander James Park, and our chief engineer, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen. They'll be assisting with the tour." The two officers nodded to the delegation. Thelenkor noticed that all three humans had similar builds, muscular and compact. Not the lean efficiency of species that had evolved on lighter worlds, but the dense, powerful frames of beings shaped by stronger gravity and harsher conditions. As they left the shuttle bay, walking through corridors that were wide enough to drive vehicles through, Thelenkor observed everything with a diplomat's trained eye. The walls were not the smooth composite materials common on modern ships. They appeared to be layered metal, welded and bolted together with visible seams. Everything looked heavy, solid, permanent. "Please excuse the utilitarian nature of our design," Rodriguez said as they walked. She seemed slightly embarrassed. "Human military architecture tends to prioritize function over form. We've been meaning to make things more aesthetically pleasing for visitors, but we haven't gotten around to it yet." Dr. Yenna clicked her mandibles politely. "Function is its own beauty, Captain. Though I am curious about your construction methods. These walls appear quite thick." 30-centimeter armor plating throughout most of the ship, Commander Park replied. "Double-hulled in critical sections. We believe in redundancy. If one system fails, 3 others can take over." Commander Vrill's crystalline form flickered with agitation. 30 centimeters? That seems excessive. Modern energy shields can deflect most weapons fire with far less mass. "We have shields too," Rodriguez said. "But we also have armor. And backup armor. And backup systems for the backup systems. Human engineering philosophy is that anything that can break eventually will break. So we build things that can survive breaking." They passed crew members in the corridors, and Thelenkor studied them carefully. All humans, no other species. That was unusual. Most modern military vessels had mixed crews representing several species for efficiency and perspective. These humans nodded respectfully to their captain as they passed, but Thelenkor noticed their posture, the way they moved. They were all physically imposing, even the smaller ones. They carried themselves with a certain readiness, an alertness that suggested they were always aware of their surroundings. One crew member walked past carrying a piece of equipment that must have massed 50 kilograms, holding it in one hand as casually as Thelenkor might carry a datapad. The human did not appear to be straining at all. "Your crew seems remarkably strong," Thelenkor observed, keeping his tone neutral. Rodriguez glanced at the crew member, who had just passed. "Earth gravity is 1.2 times standard galactic specification. We all grow up under those conditions. Makes us a bit more robust than species from lighter worlds. Our bones are denser, our muscles stronger per unit mass. It's just biology." Just biology, Thelenkor thought. Just the product of evolving on a world that would crush most civilized species. They entered what Rodriguez called the observation lounge, a large room with windows that provided a view of space outside. The delegation spread out, examining various displays and interfaces. Everything was labeled in human languages, with no translation matrices installed. "You do not use standard galactic interface systems," noted diplomat Schradel of the Corvian Union. His tentacles gestured toward a control panel that looked entirely mechanical, rather than the holographic systems common throughout the galaxy. "We do on our civilian vessels," Lieutenant Commander Chen explained. "But military ships use isolated systems. No wireless connections, no universal interfaces. Everything is hardwired, manually operated. It makes systems harder to hack or disable remotely. Takes longer to use, requires more training, but it's more secure. You design your vessels anticipating electronic warfare," Vrill said slowly, his crystalline body shifting to a darker hue. "You expect enemies to attempt infiltration of your systems." "We expect everything," Rodriguez said simply. "Hope for the best, prepare for the worst." That's a human saying. It served us well. Thelenkor moved to one of the windows and looked out at space. In the distance, he could see the harmonious Unity, small and delicate against the void. From here, the Indomitable stretched away in both directions, its hull a landscape of armor and weapons. Captain Rodriguez, he said carefully. Your vessel is unlike any warship currently in service with any Galactic Council member. May I ask why humanity chose such a distinctive design philosophy? Rodriguez joined him at the window. For a moment she was quiet, and Thelenkor thought she might not answer. Then she spoke, her voice thoughtful. Ambassador, humans fought each other for our entire history. Wars on land, on sea, in the air, and space. We developed weapons that could destroy cities in seconds. We built machines designed for nothing but killing other machines. We spent thousands of years perfecting the art of destruction. When we finally achieved peace among ourselves and reached for the stars, we knew what was possible out there. We knew that the universe might not be friendly. She turned to face him directly. We came to the stars expecting war, Ambassador. We built ships that could survive it. We trained crews that could fight it. We prepared for the worst thing we could imagine, because we had already done the worst things imaginable to ourselves. We know what war looks like because we invented most of it. The observation lounge had gone silent. Every delegate was listening now. Then we met you, Rodriguez continued, and her expression softened. We met the council, all of you, and we learned that the galaxy had chosen peace. We learned that civilized species talk instead of fight, negotiate instead of destroy. It was the most beautiful thing we had ever discovered. But by then, we had already built these ships. So you keep them, Thelenkor said quietly. We keep them, Rodriguez agreed. Because even in a peaceful galaxy, it's good to be able to defend that peace if necessary. And because scrapping them would be wasteful. And because, well, we're very good at building warships. It's what we know. Commander Park stepped forward. If I may, Ambassador, the weapons deck is next on the tour. That's what you really came to see, isn't it? Thelenkor's 3 hearts beat faster. He was not sure he wanted to see the weapons deck. But he nodded. They had come for an inspection. They would complete their mission no matter what they found. The weapons deck stretched before them like a cathedral dedicated to destruction. The ceiling rose 15 meters overhead, supported by massive structural beams. The space was divided into sections, each one housing different weapon systems. And the scale of everything made Thelenkor feel small, in a way he had not experienced since childhood. Captain Rodriguez led them to the first station, where a massive cylindrical object dominated the space. It extended through the floor and ceiling, disappearing into the upper and lower decks. The cylinder was at least 4 meters in diameter, surrounded by machinery, power conduits, and cooling systems that hummed with barely contained energy. This is a magnetic accelerator cannon, Rodriguez explained, resting her hand on the metal housing with something that looked like affection. We call it a railgun. It uses electromagnetic force to accelerate a solid projectile to extremely high velocity. No explosives, no energy beams, just physics and a very fast piece of metal. Dr. Yenna approached the weapon cautiously, her scientific curiosity overcoming her obvious nervousness. How fast does the projectile travel? Depends on the power setting, Lieutenant Commander Chen replied. She pulled up a holographic display that showed various specifications. At minimum power, about 0.05% of light speed. At maximum power, we can push it to 0.3%. The delegates exchanged glances. Those velocities were not just fast. They were relativistic. At those speeds, even a small projectile would carry devastating kinetic energy. What do you fire from these cannons? Commander Vril asked, his crystalline body now a deep amber color that indicated deep concern. Usually tungsten carbide penetrators, Rodriguez said. Each one masses about 200 kilograms. We have explosive rounds, fragmenting rounds, and specialized penetrators for different target types. The ship carries 4,000 rounds for each cannon. Each cannon, Thelenkor repeated quietly. How many of these weapons does the Indomitable carry? 48, Rodriguez said simply. 12 on each facing, dorsal, ventral, port, and starboard, with overlapping fire arcs for full coverage. Thelenkor did the mathematics in his head. 48 cannons, each firing 200-kilogram projectiles at relativistic speeds, with 4,000 rounds per cannon. The total destructive potential was beyond anything in the current galactic military arsenal. One broadside from this vessel could obliterate a battle fleet. They moved to the next section where rows upon rows of vertical tubes lined the walls. Each tube was perhaps 2 meters in diameter, sealed with heavy blast doors. Missile tubes, Commander Park announced. We have 360 launch cells. Each cell can carry 1 heavy missile or 3 light missiles depending on mission requirements. Missiles are considered somewhat archaic, Diplomat Schradel said, his tentacles gesturing dismissively. Modern point defense systems can intercept them easily. Our missiles are somewhat difficult to intercept, Rodriguez said with a slight smile that made Thelancor deeply uncomfortable. They have their own defensive countermeasures, stealth coatings, and evasive programming. They're also very fast. And we typically fire them in large numbers. Chen brought up another holographic display showing different missile types. Standard high-explosive warheads for ship-to-ship combat, armor-piercing bunker busters for fortified positions, area denial cluster munitions, and our mining missiles which we use for asteroid resource extraction. Mining missiles? Dr. Yenna asked. Sometimes you need to break apart a large asteroid to access valuable minerals, Chen explained. So we developed high-yield warheads specifically for fragmenting large objects. We call them planet crackers, though that's not technically accurate. They could severely damage a planet's surface, but they couldn't actually crack a planet. That would require significantly more energy. The casual way she described weapons that could devastate a planetary surface made Thelancor's blood run cold. These were mining tools to the humans. Mining tools. They continued through the weapons deck, and each new system added to the growing horror that Thelancor felt settling into his bones. Point defense cannons that could track and destroy hundreds of targets simultaneously. Electronic warfare suites designed to blind, confuse, and disable enemy systems. Armor-penetrating torpedoes, particle beam projectors, kinetic kill vehicles. The list went on and on. Your species has devoted considerable resources to weapons development, Thelancor said carefully, trying to keep judgment out of his voice. Rodriguez nodded slowly. More than we should have, probably. But you have to understand where we come from, Ambassador. Earth is what the galactic community would classify as a Class 12 death world. Several delegates gasped. Class 12 was the highest danger rating. Worlds where life was so competitive, so violent, that evolution became an arms race of survival adaptations. Our planet has 1.2 times standard gravity, Rodriguez continued. Our weather systems are violent and unpredictable. We have storms that can flatten cities, waves that reach 30 meters high, earthquakes that tear the ground apart. Our biosphere is filled with predators, parasites, and diseases that evolved alongside us, constantly trying to kill us. She walked among the weapons as she spoke, and Thelancor realized she was completely comfortable here, surrounded by instruments of death. This was her natural environment. Every species on Earth fights for survival every day. The plants develop toxins, so herbivores develop immunity, so plants develop stronger toxins. Predators develop speed and strength, so prey develops better senses and camouflage, so predators develop better hunting strategies. Everything evolves to kill or avoid being killed. There is no peaceful equilibrium. There is only survival. And humans? Thelancor asked quietly. Humans are persistence predators, Commander Park said. We're not the fastest or the strongest, but we don't give up. We track our prey for days if necessary. We work in groups. We use tools. We plan ahead. We learn from our mistakes. And we never, ever stop. Dr. Yenna's mandibles clicked nervously. But you also developed intelligence, civilization, culture. You moved beyond mere survival. We did, Rodriguez agreed, but we brought our survival instincts with us. Ambassador, do you know how many major wars humanity has fought among ourselves? How many times we nearly drove our own species to extinction? Thelancor shook his head. We stopped counting after 10,000 documented conflicts. 10,000 wars, Ambassador. Some lasted for days, some for generations. We developed weapons that could poison the air, burn entire continents, turn our own planet uninhabitable. We built bombs that could kill millions in seconds. We created diseases as weapons. We turned science into a tool for destruction, as often as we used it for creation. She paused at a viewport that showed the stars beyond. We finally learned to stop fighting each other about 200 years ago. We unified as a species, not because we suddenly became peaceful, but because we found a common purpose, reaching for the stars. We channeled all that competitive energy, all that survival instinct, into exploration and expansion. But you still built weapons, Vril said. You still prepared for war. Because we know what we're capable of, Rodriguez said simply. If we could do such terrible things to ourselves, we had to consider that others might do the same to us. We hoped for friendship, but we prepared for conflict. It's our nature. Thelenkor looked around the weapons deck, seeing it with new understanding. This was not just a warship. It was a monument to humanity's violent past and their fear of a violent future. Every weapon system represented a lesson, learned in blood. A strategy developed through countless battles, a technology refined through generations of warfare. The ship's physician, a human woman named Dr. Lisa Okonkwo, had joined them during the tour. She had been quiet until now, but she spoke up suddenly. "If I may add something, Ambassador," she said. "Humans are also remarkably difficult to kill. We have redundant organs, rapid healing capabilities, and extreme injury tolerance. A human can lose 30% of their blood volume and continue fighting. We can survive injuries that would be fatal to most species. Our psychological resilience is equally robust. We adapt to almost any condition, endure almost any hardship." She smiled, but it was a sad smile. "We evolved to survive on a world that was constantly trying to kill us. So we became very, very hard to kill." The tour was supposed to continue, but Thelenkor raised his hand. "Captain Rodriguez, I think we have seen enough for now. With your permission, I would like to request that you conduct a weapons demonstration, a practical test rather than just a technical briefing." Rodriguez exchanged glances with her officers. "Are you certain, Ambassador? Our weapons are quite powerful." "I am certain," Thelenkor said, though he was not certain at all. But the Council needed to see this. They needed to understand what humanity had brought to the galaxy. "Very well," Rodriguez said. "We'll set up a demonstration for tomorrow. There's a designated testing range in this system, an uninhabited asteroid field. We can use one of the larger asteroids as a target." As they left the weapons deck and returned to their shuttle, Thelenkor felt a weight on his shoulders that had nothing to do with the increased gravity. They had come expecting to see a standard military vessel. Instead, they had discovered something else entirely. The asteroid designated as Target 7 hung in space like a small moon. It was roughly spherical, measuring approximately 8 kilometers in diameter, composed primarily of iron and nickel with traces of other heavy metals. According to the scans, it massed about 300 billion kilograms. It was solid, ancient, and utterly unremarkable except for one fact. The Indomitable was about to destroy it. The Harmonious Unity maintained a position 50,000 kilometers from the target, what Captain Rodriguez had described as a safe observation distance. Thelenkor stood in the observation deck with the other delegates watching the human warship position itself. The Indomitable looked even more intimidating in this context, a predator preparing to strike. "All delegates, please ensure your personal shielding is active," announced the Harmonious Unity's captain. "We are detecting significant energy buildup from the human vessel. Protective protocols are now in effect." Thelenkor activated his personal shield, a small device that would protect him from radiation and energy spikes. Around him, the other delegates did the same. Commander Vril's crystalline form had turned almost completely transparent, a stress response his species exhibited in dangerous situations. Captain Rodriguez's voice came through the communication channel, calm and professional. "Harmonious Unity, this is Indomitable. We are ready to begin the demonstration. For safety purposes, we recommend you increase your distance to 100,000 kilometers. 100,000 kilometers. That was twice the distance they had originally planned." Thelenkor felt a chill run through his body. "Captain Rodriguez," he said, "is that truly necessary?" "Ambassador, I want to be absolutely certain you're safe. What we're about to do generates significant secondary effects. Please increase your distance." The Harmonious Unity's captain did not argue. The diplomatic vessel's engines engaged, moving them further away from the target area. As they traveled, Thelenkor watched the Indomitable through the viewport. The human ship was not moving. It simply hung in space, oriented toward its target. waiting with the patience that Rodriguez had described as a human trait. "We are now at 100,000 kilometers," the Harmonious Unity's captain reported. "Acknowledged," Rodriguez replied. "Beginning weapons test in 30 seconds. The demonstration will consist of a single railgun firing at 15% power capacity. One gun, one shot, minimum operational power. Are you ready? One gun, one shot, minimum power." Thelencor's 3 hearts beat faster. If this was minimum power, what did maximum power look like? "We are ready, Captain Rodriguez." "Understood. Firing in 10 seconds, 9, 8. Thelencor gripped the railing in front of the viewport. The other delegates moved closer, their various forms of eyes, sensors, and optical organs focused on the distant asteroid. 3, 2, 1. Firing. For a fraction of a second, nothing happened. Then Thelencor saw a brief flash from the Indomitable's hull, so quick he almost missed it. The railgun had fired. The projectile was invisible. It was traveling too fast to see. A 200-kilogram tungsten carbide penetrator moving at 1,500 kilometers per second. It crossed the distance to the asteroid in less than 3 seconds. When it hit, reality seemed to pause. The impact point on the asteroid's surface erupted in a flash of light brighter than a small sun. The kinetic energy of the projectile, traveling at 0.5% light speed, converted instantly into heat and pressure. The temperature at the impact site exceeded 50,000 degrees. The pressure wave propagated through the asteroid's structure faster than sound, faster than the material could react. The asteroid did not break apart. It did not fracture or shatter. It vaporized. 300 billion kilograms of iron and nickel, compressed over billions of years into solid rock, ceased to exist as a coherent object. The impact energy was so extreme that molecular bonds simply failed. Matter was converted to plasma, expanding outward in a sphere of superheated gas that glowed like a newborn star. The explosion was visible even from 100,000 kilometers away. The viewport's filters automatically darkened to maximum setting to protect the delegates from the intense light. Even through the filters, Thelencor had to look away, his optical organs burning from the brightness. "By the ancient stars," someone whispered. It might have been him. The plasmasphere expanded for several seconds, then began to cool and disperse. Fragments of the asteroid, the parts that had been far enough from the impact point to survive. Vaporization tumbled away in all directions, glowing red-hot. The largest fragment Thelencor could identify was perhaps 50 meters across, less than 1% of the original asteroid's mass. "Impact confirmed," Rodriguez's voice said calmly through the communication channel, as if she had just completed a routine equipment test. "Target destroyed, all weapon systems functioning within normal parameters." Thelencor could not speak. His translator implant checked itself twice, thinking there must be an error, because surely his brain was not processing correctly. "Doctor," Yenna's mandibles hung open in shock. Diplomat Schradel's tentacles had gone completely limp. Even Commander Vril, who had commanded military fleets for decades, stood frozen, his crystalline form completely colorless. "That was 15% power, Doctor," Yenna finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You said that was 15% power." "Yes, ma'am," Rodriguez confirmed. "We generally don't fire at full power except in emergency situations. The energy requirements are substantial, and it puts stress on the weapon systems. 15% is our standard operational setting for anti-ship combat." "Anti-ship combat," Vril repeated. His voice had lost all of its musical quality, becoming flat and mechanical. "That weapon could destroy any ship in the Galactic fleet with a single shot." "Yes, sir, I expect it could," Rodriguez agreed. There was no pride in her voice, no boasting. She was simply stating a fact. "How many of these weapons does your ship have again?" Thelencor asked, though he knew the answer. He needed to hear it again, to confirm that his memory was correct. 48 railguns, Ambassador, 12 on each facing." 48. The Indomitable could fire 48 shots like the one they had just witnessed. Thelencor tried to imagine what that would look like in actual combat. A single broadside from this vessel could vaporize an entire battle fleet. All 12 guns on one side firing simultaneously at a group of ships. Nothing in the galaxy could survive that. Nothing. And you have more ships like this? Diplomat Schradel asked, his translator conveying the tremor in his voice. There was a pause before Rodriguez answered. The Indomitable is a Titan-class battleship. We have 12 vessels of this class in active service. We also have 57 Colossus-class heavy cruisers, which are about half the size and firepower of the Indomitable. Then there are the lighter vessels, destroyers, frigates, corvettes. The full United Earth Space Navy consists of approximately 300 combat vessels of various classes, 300 warships, 12 of them like the Indomitable. And that was just one species, one military force, one planet's contribution to the galaxy's defense capabilities, or offense capabilities, Thelenkor thought grimly. I believe I need to point out something. Commander Park's voice joined the conversation. Everything you've seen today is from a ship design that's nearly 20 years old. The Indomitable was commissioned 2 years before we made first contact with the Galactic Council. We've been upgrading and refining our technology since then, learning from you. Our newest ship designs are significantly more advanced. More advanced. The words hung in the air like a threat, though Thelenkor knew it was not meant that way. The humans were not threatening them. They were simply being honest, providing the information the Council had requested. But the implications were terrifying. Captain Rodriguez, Thelenkor said carefully. Why did humanity build weapons of such power? What were you preparing to fight? Another pause. Ambassador, when we reached for the stars, we had no idea what we would find. We knew what we were capable of. We knew how violent and destructive a technological species could be because we had spent thousands of years being violent and destructive to ourselves. So we prepared for the worst-case scenario, which was that we would encounter another species like us, another civilization that had fought its way up from a death world, another culture that had perfected warfare over millennia of conflict. We built these ships to fight an enemy that thought like we did, that was as determined and relentless as we were. We built them to win a war against ourselves. The horror of that statement settled over the observation deck like a cold blanket. The humans had not built their military to fight the galaxy as it existed. They had built it to fight a mirror image of themselves, a species just as deadly and determined. They had prepared for total war against an enemy that did not exist. Except that enemy did exist. It was them. But you learned we were peaceful, Thelenkor said, trying to find hope in the situation. You discovered that the galaxy had chosen cooperation over conflict. We did, Rodriguez agreed, and her voice warmed slightly. It was the best discovery we've ever made, Ambassador. Learning that the universe was full of people who talked instead of fought, who traded instead of invaded, who built together instead of destroying each other. It gave us hope that maybe we could change too. That maybe all our violence and aggression could be chi. The conference room aboard the Harmonious Unity was designed for diplomatic discussions, with comfortable seating accommodating various body types and atmospheres suitable for most known species. But comfort was the last thing on anyone's mind as the delegates gathered in emergency session. They had returned from the Indomitable 6 hours ago, and none of them had rested. How could they? The galaxy had fundamentally changed, and they had to decide what to do about it. Thelenkor stood at the head of the table, his 3 hearts beating rapidly, despite his attempts to project calm. Around him sat the 6 other delegates representing the most powerful military and diplomatic forces in the Galactic Council. They were supposed to have been conducting a routine inspection. Instead, they had discovered something that challenged everything they thought they knew about warfare, power, and peace. We need to discuss our report to the Council, Thelenkor began. Each of you has had time to review the data, analyze the specifications, and witness the demonstration. I want your honest assessments, Commander Vril spoke first. His crystalline form had regained some color, though it was still darker than normal. From a purely military perspective, humanity represents a paradigm shift in galactic power dynamics. Their vessels are not merely superior to ours. They operate on entirely different principles. Our military doctrine for the past 3 millennia has been based on efficiency, surgical precision, and minimal resource expenditure. Human doctrine is based on overwhelming force, redundancy, and the assumption of total war. Total war, Dr. Yenna repeated. Her mandibles clicked nervously. I have been researching this concept in the human historical databases they provided. It means the complete mobilization of all resources, military and civilian, toward the destruction of the enemy. It means no distinction between combatants and non-combatants. It means fighting until one side achieves absolute victory or faces complete annihilation. Barbaric, muttered diplomat Krentos of the Peleran hegemony, a species known for their refined culture and distaste for violence. Perhaps, Thelancor said carefully, but also effective. We must acknowledge reality. Humanity has been part of the galactic community for 5 cycles, and in that time they have been peaceful, cooperative, and respectful of all treaties and protocols. They have given us no reason to fear them, but we must also acknowledge what we have seen. A single shot from one weapon on one ship completely destroyed an 8-kilometer asteroid, Diplomat Shradel said, his tentacles gesturing with agitation. And that ship has 47 more weapons just like it. And there are 11 more ships of that class. Ambassador Thelancor, one of those vessels could conquer a star system. A dozen of them could threaten the entire council. Could they? Challenged Commander Vril. Let us be precise in our assessment. Could humanity's military actually threaten the combined forces of the Galactic Council? The room fell silent. No one wanted to answer that question. Finally, Dr. Yenna brought up a holographic display showing various calculations and projections. I have been running simulations based on the specifications we gathered, she said quietly. The Galactic Council maintains a combined military force of approximately 30,000 vessels across all member species. In a conventional engagement, following standard tactical doctrine, we would have significant numerical superiority. 300 human ships against 30,000 of ours should be an easy victory for us. But, Thelancor prompted, because he could hear the hesitation in her voice. But human vessels do not follow conventional parameters. Their weapons have ranges far exceeding ours. Their armor can withstand damage that would destroy our ships. Their redundant systems mean they can continue fighting even after suffering catastrophic damage. And their crews? She paused, mandibles clicking. Their crews come from a death world. They are physically stronger, more resilient, and psychologically adapted to extreme stress and violence. In simulations, human vessels consistently achieve kill ratios of 20-to-1 or higher against equivalent council forces. 20-to-1, Vril repeated. His crystalline form flickered through several colors, processing this information. That would make the engagement approximately even. 300 human ships with a 20-to-1 advantage equals 6,000 effective vessels. Still outnumbered, but no longer overwhelmingly so. And that assumes we can actually coordinate 30,000 ships from dozens of different species, each with their own command structures, communication systems, and tactical doctrines, Diplomat Shradel added, while humanity fields a unified force with standardized equipment and training. In reality, their effective power may be even greater. Thelancor felt the weight of the galaxy settling on his shoulders. So what you are telling me is that humanity, a single species from a single planet, has achieved military parity with the entire Galactic Council. Not exactly parity, Dr. Yenna said. We would still have advantages in numbers, resources, and industrial capacity, but they would no longer be the easy victory we assumed. A war with humanity would be catastrophic for both sides. Millions would die. Entire worlds could be destroyed. The economic and social damage would take generations to repair, and the outcome would be uncertain. Which means, Thelancor said slowly, understanding dawning, that the fundamental equation of galactic peace has changed. For 3,000 years we have maintained peace because warfare was mathematically unprofitable. The cost of fighting always exceeded any possible gain. But now we have a species that can make war profitable again, Commander Vril finished. Not because they want to, but because they are capable of it. If humanity decided to expand aggressively, to take territory or resources by force, they might actually succeed. The equation has changed. Diplomat Krentos stood abruptly. Then we must act before they realize their power. We must neutralize the human threat while we still have numerical superiority. We must strike first. Absolutely not, Thelancor said firmly. Humanity has committed no aggression. They have violated no treaties. They have been model citizens of the galactic community. We will not start a war based on fear of what they might do. But Ambassador, no. Thelancor's voice carried the authority of his 40 years as a diplomat. Listen to what you are proposing. You want to attack a peaceful species because they are capable of defending themselves effectively. You want to start a war to prevent a war that may never happen. That is not justice. That is not how the Council operates. He moved around the table, making eye contact with each delegate in turn. I spoke with Captain Rodriguez at length after the demonstration. I asked her directly about humanity's intentions. Do you know what she told me? She said that humans came to the stars expecting war, but they found peace instead. And that peace was the most beautiful thing they had ever discovered. She said they built their weapons to fight, but they maintain them to protect. She said their greatest hope is that they never have to use them. Pretty words, Krentos muttered. Perhaps, Thelenkor agreed. But I believe them. Not because I am naive, but because I am a diplomat. I have negotiated with hundreds of species over decades of service. I know when someone is lying. Captain Rodriguez was not lying. Humanity wants peace. They just want to be strong enough that no one can take that peace away from them. Then what do you propose? Vril asked. Thelenkor took a deep breath, knowing that what he was about to suggest would be controversial. I propose we embrace them. Not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Think about it. For 3,000 years, we have maintained peace through economic interdependence and mutual agreement. But those are soft powers, easily disrupted by a determined aggressor. Now we have the opportunity to add hard power to our peace. Real deterrence. Absolute security. You want to ally with them, Dr. Yenna said. I want to make them part of us, Thelenkor corrected. I want to integrate human military doctrine with council strategy. I want their ships patrolling our borders, protecting our trade routes, defending our worlds. I want everyone in the galaxy to know that an attack on any council member is an attack on all of us, including the humans. Because if potential aggressors know that attacking us means facing human warships, they will choose peace instead. Diplomat Shradel's tentacles waved thoughtfully. You want to turn humanity into the galaxy's guardians. I want to give them a purpose that aligns with their nature, Thelenkor said. Humans are warriors. That is what their world made them. We cannot change that, and we should not try. But we can give them something worth fighting for. We can make them the protectors of the peace they value so much. And if they refuse? Krentos asked. If they decide they would rather be conquerors than protectors, then we will have made an enemy we cannot easily defeat, Thelenkor admitted. But I believe that is less likely than if we reject them or threaten them. Give someone a reason to be good, and most species will choose good. Give them only fear and suspicion, and even peaceful people will arm for war. The room was silent as the delegates considered this. Finally, Commander Vril spoke, his crystalline form shifting to a lighter, calmer blue. The ambassador has a point. From a strategic perspective, having humanity as allies is infinitely preferable to having them as enemies. And it will end.